Physical reality is only a mirror, and whatever you define it to be is what you get. You are not where you think you are. You are still breathing, still listening, still watching this video, but part of you is already somewhere else. That's uncomfortable. Good. Stay with that feeling. Because if you leave now, you will miss the one realization that explains why things feel slightly off lately. Not wrong, not broken, just misaligned. And most people never notice when it happens. You might already be doing everything right, working, thinking, trying to improve, trying to stay positive, trying to understand, and still something isn't clicking. Now listen carefully. This isn't about effort. It's not about beliefs. And it's definitely not about becoming someone else. The mistake happens much earlier than people realize. If you misunderstand what comes next, everything else collapses. Because the biggest change happening right now doesn't look like change at all. It looks like normal life. Same streets, same jobs, same conversations, same faces. And yet not everyone is experiencing the same world anymore. That sentence alone should bother you. Not because it sounds dramatic, but because it sounds quiet. Most people expect transformation to announce itself, with noise, with disruption, with clear signs. But what if the most important shift doesn't interrupt your routine? What if it slides underneath it? You won't notice it at first. You'll just feel slightly out of sync, like you're pushing forward, but something keeps pulling sideways. This is where most people get it wrong. They assume reality reacts to effort, that if they do enough, think enough, try hard enough, things should eventually line up. But reality doesn't respond to effort. It reflects coherence. That difference matters more than you realize. Now pause for a moment. You've probably been told that the world is something you move through, that time passes, that events happen, that you respond. But what if that entire framework is upside down? What if consciousness isn't something inside the world, but the field the world appears within? If that sounds abstract, good. Don't try to understand it yet. Understanding too early is how people miss the point. Because when consciousness is primary, reality isn't a reward system. It's a mirror. And mirrors don't judge effort. They reflect alignment. This is why two people can live in the same city, walk the same streets, watch the same news, and feel like they're living in completely different worlds. Not emotionally, literally. Same earth, different experience of it. Now listen carefully. This is not about good people and bad people, not about awakened and unawakened, not about right or wrong. That framing is a trap. What's happening is far more subtle. Each of us is constantly tuning into a version of reality that matches our internal coherence, not our thoughts, not our hopes, not our affirmations, our coherence. And coherence is not something you fake. It's the relationship between what you feel, what you expect, and what you allow yourself to be. When those are aligned, reality feels fluid. When they aren't, reality feels resistant. And resistance is not punishment. It's feedback. Suffering is not a sentence, it's a signal. Most people don't want to hear that, because it removes the comfort of blame. If suffering were punishment, then someone is in charge. If it's misalignment, responsibility shifts inward, not as guilt, as awareness. Now here's where things start to get uncomfortable. Forgetting is not a mistake. You didn't forget who you are by accident. You didn't forget how this works due to failure. Forgetting was intentional, because remembering too early collapses the experience. Think about it. If you always knew this was a reflection, would you take anything seriously? Would growth have weight? Would choice matter? Forgetting creates stakes, and stakes create experience. Now, listen carefully. If you misunderstand this, everything else collapses. The goal was never to wake up in the way people imagine. There is no final alarm clock. There are parallel versions of you right now, exploring different degrees of remembering. Not in the future, not in another universe far away. Parallel as in simultaneous. Different versions of coherence, different alignments, different reflections. This is why change feels uneven lately, why some people feel like life is accelerating, while others feel stuck in loops. It's not that the world is splitting, it's that reality is revealing its layered nature, and not everyone is tuned to the same layer. Now pause. Notice how none of this required belief. You don't have to accept it. You don't have to agree. This isn't about convincing you. It's about noticing patterns you already feel. That subtle sense that conversations don't land the same way anymore. That old goals feel hollow. That effort without alignment feels exhausting. This is not burnout. It's miscalibration. And most people try to fix calibration with more effort, which only increases the distortion. Now listen carefully. There is a silent awakening happening globally. Silent, not because it's hidden. Silent because it doesn't announce itself. No banners, no movements, no shared language. People are waking up in isolation, feeling changes they can't explain, letting go of identities without knowing why, losing interest in narratives that once defined them. And here's the part that almost no one talks about. They don't all wake up to the same place. Some wake up into clarity, some into confusion, some into resistance. Because awakening isn't a destination, it's a realignment process. And realignment exposes incoherence. Now this is important. At around this point, many viewers assume they understand what's being said. They think this is about mindset, or positivity, or belief systems. It's not. If you reduce this to a mental framework, you miss it completely. Reality doesn't care what you believe, it responds to what you are being. And being is quieter than belief. Now let me say something that may unsettle you. You can't take everyone with you. Not because you're better, not because they're worse, but because coherence can't be dragged. Each person tunes themselves. This is why relationships feel strained, why familiar dynamics feel outdated, why some connections fade without conflict. No one did anything wrong. They're just resonating differently. Now listen carefully. This does not mean separation in the way people fear. No disappearances, no dramatic events, just divergence. Like radio frequencies drifting apart. Same air, different stations. And here's the first thing I need to tell you explicitly. The most important insight is still coming later. If you leave now, you will almost certainly misunderstand everything you've heard so far. Right now, your mind is trying to categorize this, to label it, to place it in something familiar. That's normal. But the key realization requires you to sit in uncertainty a little longer. So stay. Because what comes next explains why trying harder often makes things worse. Now notice something. When life feels aligned, you don't chase signs, you don't demand proof, you move naturally. Action flows without force, that's coherence. When life feels heavy, you strategize endlessly, you second guess, you seek confirmation, that's misalignment, and the world reflects that friction back to you. Not as punishment, as information. Now listen carefully. Most people think reality rewards effort, but effort without coherence amplifies distortion. It's like pushing harder on a steering wheel that's already turned the wrong way. You go faster, but not where you intended. This is why progress sometimes feels like regression, why growth feels expensive. Now here's something most people never consider. You are not becoming one version of yourself. You are selecting between versions that already exist. Each choice, each reaction, each allowance tunes you. And tuning doesn't feel dramatic. It feels subtle. A thought you don't chase. A reaction you don't feed, an expectation you quietly release. These are not spiritual acts, they are mechanical, like adjusting a dial. Now pause again. Ask yourself something honestly. Do you feel like you've been forcing clarity lately? If the answer is yes, that's important, because clarity doesn't come from force, it comes from coherence. And coherence comes from letting alignment lead effort, not the other way around. Now this is where most people get it wrong. They try to fix the external reflection before adjusting the internal alignment. They rearrange circumstances, change environments, blame systems, but the reflection follows the signal, always. Now I want you to do something simple, not an exercise, not a technique, just notice. Notice where life feels fluid. Notice where it feels sticky. Don't judge it, don't fix it, just notice. That contrast is already teaching you. Now, if you're still here, type this in the comments. I'm noticing the difference, not for anyone else, for yourself. Identity follows acknowledgement. Now listen carefully. The idea that consciousness is primary isn't philosophy, it's functional. If consciousness is primary, then reality isn't something that happens to you. It's something that responds to you, not emotionally, structurally. And structure doesn't argue, it reflects. Now think about suffering again. If suffering were punishment, it would be random, but it's patterned. People suffer in consistent ways, the same themes, the same loops, the same frustrations. That's alignment feedback. Now here's the uncomfortable part. You can't fix misalignment by demanding different reflections. You adjust alignment, and the reflection reorganizes naturally. This is why shortcuts fail. This is why forcing outcomes backfires. And this is why some people feel like they're doing everything right and still stuck, because they're trying to override coherence with effort. Now listen carefully. This process doesn't make you special. It makes you precise, and precision is quiet. Now, in the next part, we're going to approach something people usually avoid, the idea that forgetting was not only intentional, but necessary for this phase, and why remembering too much, too fast, actually destabilizes reality perception. That's where misunderstanding becomes dangerous. So stay with me, because the most important realization hasn't arrived yet. Now listen carefully. What you're about to hear is usually misunderstood, even by people who think they already get it, because the mind wants answers. And this process doesn't begin with answers. It begins with tolerance for not knowing. Forgetting, as we said, was intentional, but not forgetting everything, only forgetting enough. Enough to allow choice to feel real, enough to allow effort to feel meaningful, enough to allow identity to feel solid. If you remembered fully who you are, there would be no friction, and without friction, experience collapses. So, forgetting isn't failure, it's design, and that design has stages. Right now, many people are in a stage where the forgetting is thinning, not disappearing, just thinning, which creates a strange sensation. You start to remember something, but you can't put it into words. You feel clarity, but it doesn't translate into plans. You sense direction, but traditional paths feel wrong. This is where most people panic. They try to stabilize the feeling by turning it into belief systems, rules, labels, certainty. But that freezes the process. Now listen carefully. If you misunderstand this, everything else collapses. The goal is not to remember everything. The goal is to remember just enough to realign. Too little remembering, and you feel lost. Too much remembering, and you feel detached. Balance is coherence, and coherence is dynamic. It adjusts moment by moment. This is why awakening doesn't look like enlightenment. It looks like instability at first. Old motivations fade. New ones haven't formed yet. That gap feels uncomfortable, but that gap is where recalibration happens. Most people rush to fill it, with distractions, with noise, with borrowed certainty. And when they do, they lock themselves into a parallel version of themselves that feels safe, but stagnant. Now pause. You may have noticed people around you clinging harder lately, to opinions, to identities, to outrage, to certainty. That's not awakening. That's resistance to recalibration. Because when coherence shifts, anything misaligned feels threatened. Now listen carefully. Parallel versions of you are not science fiction. They are experiential realities. Different internal alignments create different lived worlds, not metaphorically, functionally. This is why two people can witness the same event and experience completely different realities. Not interpretations, realities. One sees opportunity, another sees threat. One feels expansion, another feels contraction. Neither is wrong. They're tuned differently. And tuning determines perception. Now this is where the idea of splitting gets distorted. People imagine dramatic separation. That's not how coherence works. It's not a crack, it's a drift. Slow, subtle, unannounced. You don't wake up one day in a different world. You gradually stop resonating with certain versions of it. And one day you realize conversations don't land anymore. Humor doesn't connect. Arguments feel pointless. Certain news feels irrelevant. Not because you're above it, because you're no longer tuned to it. Now listen carefully. This does not make you immune to suffering. It changes the nature of it. Instead of dramatic pain, you feel quiet dissonance. A sense that something is off, that's the signal. And if you ignore that signal, dissonance accumulates. That's when suffering intensifies. Not as punishment, as amplification. Now here's something very important. You cannot force alignment by rejecting misalignment. You don't fight incoherence, you outgrow it. Resistance strengthens what you resist. Allowance dissolves it. Allowance does not mean approval. It means accurate perception. seeing what it is without trying to immediately change it. Now listen carefully. At this stage, many people try to fix themselves. That's another misunderstanding. There is nothing wrong with you. There is only mismatch. And mismatch resolves through recalibration, not correction. Correction implies judgment. Recalibration implies precision. Now think about how machines work. If a device is slightly off, you don't shame it. You adjust the settings. Human consciousness works the same way. Except most people try to adjust outcomes instead of settings. They want different results without changing internal coherence. That never works long term. Now pause. Ask yourself something honestly. Where have you been trying to force clarity? Where have you been demanding certainty before alignment? Those are pressure points. Now listen carefully. The silent global awakening is not synchronized. There is no shared timeline, no countdown, no event everyone agrees on. That's intentional, because coherence is individual. Mass awakening fantasies are comforting but inaccurate. Alignment happens locally, person by person, moment by moment. And that means divergence is inevitable, not as tragedy, as function. Now here's where many people feel guilt. They worry they're leaving others behind. That language itself is misaligned. No one is behind. They are exactly where their coherence places them, just as you are. Now listen carefully. Trying to drag someone into your frequency creates friction for both of you. You feel misunderstood, they feel pressured. That's not love. Love is resonance without force. Now here's a difficult truth. Some relationships are meant to expire, not dramatically, not painfully, quietly. They fulfilled their function. Holding on out of obligation creates distortion. Letting go restores coherence. Now pause again. If this resonates, type this in the comments. I'm allowing alignment. Again, not for validation, for identity anchoring. Now listen carefully. This phase often feels lonely because resonance narrows before it expands. Old connections fade before new ones appear. That gap can feel like loss, but it's actually clearing. Now, around this point, many viewers think the message is detach from the world. That is not the message. Detachment without coherence becomes dissociation. That's not alignment. Alignment is engagement without distortion. You still live, work, care, act, but without forcing outcomes, without clinging to identities. Now listen carefully. Reality is not testing you, it's reflecting you. And reflection changes only when the signal changes. The signal is not thought, it's being. Being includes expectations you don't verbalize, assumptions you don't question, reactions you justify. Those shape your reality more than intentions ever could. Now think about effort again. Effort aligned with coherence feels light. Effort misaligned feels exhausting. Same action, different internal state, different reflection. This is why advice fails, because advice ignores coherence. Now listen carefully. This is where most people misunderstand the idea of parallel selves. They think it means infinite versions doing random things. That's not useful. Think of it instead as probability focus. At every moment, you align with a version of yourself that matches your internal state. Not once, continuously. Small shifts matter, and small shifts don't feel dramatic. They feel like subtle permission. Now pause. Have you noticed that when you stop chasing something, it often moves closer? That's coherence correcting distortion, not reward, reflection. Now listen carefully. Here comes the second explicit retention point. What you think this is leading to is not what it's leading to. If you leave now, you'll likely turn this into a mental philosophy and miss the practical implication completely. The most important realization is still ahead, because we haven't touched yet on why trying to be aligned often creates misalignment, and why effort to awaken slows awakening. That's coming. So stay. Now let's approach suffering again. Suffering is misalignment experienced as friction. But friction has direction. It points toward adjustment. When you suffer the same way repeatedly, it's not fate, it's feedback ignored. When suffering changes form, alignment is shifting. When suffering dissolves without explanation, coherence has stabilized. Now listen carefully. Avoiding suffering is not the goal. Understanding its signal is. Most people numb suffering instead. They distract, they justify, they intellectualize. That delays recalibration. Now pause. What have you been numbing instead of listening to? That question matters. Now listen carefully. Forgetting also includes forgetting how powerful coherence is, because if you remembered fully, you would manipulate reflection consciously, and that would collapse the game. So power is hidden inside subtlety. You're not meant to control reality, you're meant to align with it. Control creates resistance. Alignment creates flow. Now this is crucial. Flow is not constant pleasure, it's appropriate response. Sometimes that includes discomfort, but discomfort aligned feels meaningful. Discomfort misaligned feels pointless. Now think about global events. Why do some people feel crushed, while others feel oddly calm? Same events, different coherence. This is not denial, it's tuning. Now listen carefully. You cannot judge someone else's alignment from the outside. Outward behavior is not a reliable indicator. Some people look calm but are deeply misaligned. Some look chaotic but are recalibrating. Appearance is not coherence. Feeling is. Now pause again. Ask yourself, do I feel contracted or expanded most of the time? That's your signal. Not your thoughts, not your plans, your felt sense. Now listen carefully. The mind wants certainty. Alignment offers clarity without certainty. That frustrates the mind, which is why many people abandon this process. They want answers, but answers belong to fixed realities. You're moving through fluid ones. Now, before we move into the next section, I need you to hear this clearly. Nothing you're experiencing is accidental. Confusion is part of recalibration. Disorientation is part of retuning. Silence is part of remembering, and none of this requires you to leave your life, only to stop forcing it. Now, in the final part, we're going to approach the most sensitive idea of all. Why some people will genuinely feel like others are no longer there in the same way. Not physically, experientially, and why that's not loss, but divergence. That's the realization that changes how you live from here forward. And it's still coming. Now listen carefully. What we're about to approach is subtle enough that most people misinterpret it the first time they feel it, because it doesn't arrive as an event. It arrives as absence. Not the absence of people, the absence of resonance. You still see them, still talk to them, still share space, but something is missing, and that's where fear tries to step in. The mind wants to label that feeling as loss, or abandonment, or failure, but that interpretation creates suffering where none is required. Because what's actually happening is divergence, not separation. Divergence doesn't announce itself, it doesn't ask permission. It happens quietly, through alignment. And alignment is always personal. Now listen carefully. This is not about cutting ties. It's about recognizing when shared reality is no longer shared in the same way. You can love someone and no longer inhabit the same experiential world. That doesn't make the love false. It means the tuning has changed. Now pause. Think about how many times you've tried to explain something important and realized the words couldn't land, not because the other person was incapable, but because the context wasn't shared anymore. That's divergence. Now listen carefully. Most people try to fix divergence by increasing communication, explaining harder, justifying more, proving their perspective. That never works, because divergence isn't misunderstanding, it's misalignment, and misalignment can't be argued away. It resolves only through coherence. Now this is where fear enters for many. They worry that divergence means isolation, but isolation only happens when you resist divergence. When you cling to shared reality that no longer exists. Alignment attracts new resonance, but only after space is created. Now listen carefully. At this point, many people expect a promise, a reassurance that everything will work out. That's not how this works. Reality doesn't offer guarantees, it offers precision, and precision feels calmer than certainty. Now before we go further, I need to say this explicitly. The most important realization is still ahead. If you leave now, you may mistake divergence for loss and respond with fear instead of clarity. So stay, because what comes next reframes everything you've felt so far. Now let's talk about identity. Identity is not who you are. It's how you stabilize experience. It's useful until it isn't. When coherence shifts, old identities feel heavy. Not because they were wrong, because they've completed their function. Most people experience this as confusion. I don't know who I am anymore. That's not a crisis. That's recalibration. Now listen carefully. Trying to immediately replace identity creates distortion. You don't need a new label, you need space. Space allows coherence to settle. Now pause. Notice how uncomfortable silence feels to the mind. Silence feels like emptiness, but emptiness is not absence, it's potential. Now this is crucial. Parallel versions of you are not destinations. They are states of coherence. You don't go to them, you align with them, and alignment is internal. This is why external change without internal shift feels hollow, and internal shift without external change feels disorienting. Both are part of the process. Now listen carefully. The silent global awakening doesn't create unity. It creates clarity. Unity is a byproduct, not a goal. Forced unity creates suppression. Clarity allows resonance. Now pause. You may have noticed that you're less interested in convincing others lately, that arguments feel pointless, that outrage feels draining. That's not apathy. That's alignment withdrawing energy from distortion. Now listen carefully. This doesn't make you passive, it makes you precise. You act where action aligns. You disengage where it doesn't. That's not indifference, that's coherence. Now here's something important. Many people fear that if they stop forcing, nothing will happen. But forcing is not creation. It's resistance disguised as effort. Creation happens through alignment. Alignment feels like readiness, not urgency. Now pause again. Ask yourself honestly, where have I been confusing urgency with importance? That question matters. Now listen carefully. The idea that billions will disappear was never literal. Nothing disappears. Attention shifts, resonance changes, shared realities reorganize. From the inside it feels like others are still there, but not reachable in the same way. That's not abandonment, that's divergence. Now this is the part that changes how you live. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to save anyone. You don't need to wake anyone up. You only need to remain coherent, because coherence influences reality silently, not through force, through presence. Now pause. If this resonates, type this in the comments. I choose coherence, not as a declaration. As a reminder, now listen carefully. This is not a path of withdrawal, it's a path of clarity. You still participate in the world, but you stop trying to control how others experience it. That's where peace emerges. Not because everything is perfect, but because resistance dissolves. Now we're approaching the final minutes, and there will be no conclusion. Because this isn't something that ends, it's something that continues quietly, after the video ends, after the words fade. Now listen carefully. You don't need to remember everything. You only need to notice when alignment feels present, and when it doesn't. That noticing is enough. It recalibrates you automatically. Now pause. Feel into your body for a moment, not your thoughts, your felt sense. Is there contraction or expansion? That's your compass. Now listen carefully. There is no final version of you waiting, only ongoing refinement, only increasing coherence, only quieter resistance. And quieter resistance feels like peace. Now here's the last thing I'll say. Some people will continue to feel familiar, some won't. Some paths will remain relevant. Some will dissolve. None of this is wrong. None of this is failure. It's alignment doing its work. Silently, without announcement, without spectacle. You won't notice it at first. You'll just live differently, respond differently, care differently. And one day, you'll realize you're no longer forcing life. Life is moving with you. And that's when you'll understand, not intellectually, experientially, that reality was never splitting, it was reflecting. And it still is. Right now,